You have hundreds of friends online. You can message any of them in seconds, day or night. But picture this. Your car breaks down on a dark road at midnight, and you need someone to come get you right now. How many names actually make that list? For most people, the real number is far smaller than the one stored in their phone. And the gap between those two numbers isn't about effort, or laziness, or how outgoing you are. It comes from a limit built into your brain millions of years before social media existed. In the early 1990s, a British anthropologist named Robin Dunbar started measuring something unusual. He wasn't studying people yet. He was studying monkeys and apes. Dunbar noticed that across dozens of primate species, one thing reliably predicted the size of a group an animal could live in peacefully. That one thing was the size of the neocortex, the wrinkled outer layer of the brain responsible for complex thought and social reasoning. Bigger neocortex, bigger stable group. Smaller neocortex, smaller group. Could the same formula apply to humans? Dunbar plugged human brain measurements into the equation built from chimpanzees, baboons, and macaques. The number that came out was 150. Not a round estimate, not a guess. A mathematical prediction, 150 stable relationships, and not the casual kind. Not someone you met once at a conference. Real relationships, the kind where you'd notice if they got divorced, lost a parent, or moved across the country. Why 150 though? Why not 1,000 if a phone can hold 1,000 contacts without even getting full? Because a relationship isn't free to maintain. Your brain has to store a running history for every single person. Who you owe a favor, who you trust, who hurt you once and never apologized. That storage and updating happens in the neocortex, and the neocortex only has so much room. Past roughly 150 people, the system starts to strain. Names blur together. Details get lost. The relationship quietly downgrades itself, whether you notice the shift or not. Here's where the story gets stranger. Dunbar's number was never one flat wall. It's closer to a set of rings, layered around you like rings inside a tree trunk. A researcher named Sam Roberts, working alongside Dunbar at the University of Liverpool, mapped these layers in detail. At the very center sits a tiny circle of about 5 people, the ones you would call first in a genuine crisis. Surrounding that sits a circle of 15, your close friends. Beyond that, a circle of 50, the people most would call their real friend group. Then the full 150, your entire meaningful social world. Past that line, the numbers swell to 500 loose acquaintances and 1,500 faces you could recognize on the street but barely place a name to. Each ring outward costs more mental upkeep than the one before it, and pays back less emotional closeness in return. Is this just a clever theory, though, or something that shows up in real behavior? In 2003, researchers R.A. Hill and Robin Dunbar tested the idea against something almost comically ordinary: Christmas card lists. They asked British households to list every single name on their card list, counting each person in every household separately. When the numbers were averaged out, the typical list landed right around 150 people. Different decade, different reason for staying in touch. Same ceiling Dunbar had predicted using primate brain scans years earlier. The same ceiling shows up far outside friendship circles too. Anthropologists studying military units and factory floors found that once a group passed roughly 150 people, it stopped functioning as one unit. It split into smaller divisions on its own, almost without anyone deciding to do it. A similar pattern appeared in religious communities, in small villages, even in the size of early army companies, long before anyone had heard of Dunbar's research. The number kept resurfacing in completely unrelated settings because the brain producing it never changed. Now think about your own phone for a moment. Social media arrived promising to dissolve this limit entirely. More friends, more followers, more connections, with seemingly no ceiling at all. But the ceiling never actually moved. It simply got buried under a follower count that feels infinite. Scroll through your contacts and you'll likely find hundreds of names, maybe thousands. Ask yourself which ones you'd trust with a real secret though, and that list collapses down to almost nothing. That collapse isn't a failure of modern friendship or proof that people today connect less deeply than they used to. It's your neocortex, quietly enforcing a limit that was set long before agriculture, before cities, before writing existed to keep track of anyone for you. Your ancestors lived in bands built around this exact size for a practical reason. Any larger, and a hunter-gatherer group couldn't track who had cheated whom, couldn't enforce trust without formal laws or written records, couldn't hold itself together at all. 150 was simply the edge of what a single human mind could socially carry. There were no spreadsheets back then, no contact lists, no apps quietly remembering birthdays on your behalf. There was only memory, built one face and one history at a time, inside a skull that hadn't changed much in tens of thousands of years. That same skull is the one making decisions for you right now, every time you decide who gets a reply and who gets left on read. So the next time your phone buzzes with another follower, another connection request, another name folded into a list that already feels endless, remember what's actually happening underneath it. You don't have hundreds of friends. You have one small, ancient circle, carried inside a brain built for a much smaller world, and a very long list of strangers you've simply agreed to call something else.